Subcommittee Appropriations hearing. I appreciate everyone being here today. I especially appreciate my committee being here, and we'll start the meeting. Ask Representative Chairman Nix to open us up with a prayer.
23. Let's pray. Father, we've been greatly blessed in so many ways. We pray now that you would guide us as we go through this committee meeting. Father, as we look at our budget and decide how to use the resources that we have, Lord, just bless us and give us the knowledge that we need to make good decisions. Lord, that all we do would honor you. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Well, you're right, Chairman. We're very blessed in this state, and we're been entrusted with some wonderful resources from our citizens, but we have some challenges this year in trying to appropriate those limited funds in the best way. So we will get right into our budget, our amended budget, and I'd like PSC to go first. And welcome, Commissioner, new to the job, just a few weeks, wherever you would like. And so I'll just give you the floor, and we'll talk about your budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honor for me to be here representing the Professional Standards Commission. I've been at the job about a month, but after my past experience, it seems like after being superintendent 13 years and a high school principal 7, it does seem a little bit like home. But PSC is we've already started implementing some of the cuts in the amended budget. We have already met with OPB, and we'll continue to work with them as time goes on, and they understand that some of the specifics on the sheet you're looking at may not exactly target exactly where we're at, but we're pretty close, and so we are continually working with them. What I can tell you is that the $288,000 that are being cut in our budget, we are facing that primarily by holding positions that we have vacant. We are drastically cutting travel, trying to cut back on face-to-face meetings. That is going to be a challenge as time goes on. It's one thing for the HR, the superintendents, and the HR people really want to see you and talk to you. We're doing a lot of webinars, doing a lot of face-to-face like that, just not in person. We are reducing our off-site events that we host, because we do host them across the state to meet with every single school system's HR people. And with recess across the state is one of the places that definitely always extends a welcoming hand to us. So we're also in the process of looking at our rules, seeing what we can streamline, seeing how we can make the process more efficient, not just for us, but for the prospective teachers and leaders that are coming aboard in the state of Georgia, but also for those that are reapplying for certification as they change their certificates. And so we're looking at both for us and our customers to try to do a better job, as efficient as we can do for them. Because ultimately, at the end, our job, our mission, is to ensure that Georgia's children have a qualified teacher in that classroom. And not just qualified, but one that comes from a program that is certified and a program that is teaching what the state of Georgia feels like they ought to teach and producing the type teachers that we want not just in the classroom, but morally also. And that is our job, to look at the educator preparation programs across the state, to hand out certificates to teachers that go through those programs, and also make sure that ethically those teachers do walk a straight line. And so those three items are our objective as we go through this. So we do support those programs. Tomorrow we are giving a presentation to the joint House and Senate on a new program that we've developed along with stakeholders, with our college people, and also K through 12, and it is looking at education prep, and it is a rubric that they go through, the preparation program effectiveness measures. And I am, you think in education you've learned all the acronyms. After 30 years, I am relearning some acronyms for sure in this, but the PPEMs are dealing with the colleges and what they're doing, and it is just teacher prep, what they're teaching. And this is, the information comes from current teachers that went through that program. It comes from current administrators that are evaluating those teachers that just came out of one of our programs, and it's coming from the program itself. And it is there to help. It is there to improve our teacher programs across the state. And so we are presenting that tomorrow. We work collaboratively, as I said earlier, with all the major stakeholders in the state. Georgia DOE plays a huge part in what we do, and we definitely appreciate the working relationship we have with them and with USG and our private colleges also in the state of Georgia to come out with what's best and for our state. So appreciate the work that all of you have done, and if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. But Mr. Chairman, that's about all I have.
I know it's been a challenge in this first month, dealing with budget reductions, and but I know you're very, very capable and up to it. So, but we do have a couple of questions,
Okay,
if you do, and Representative Glanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation this afternoon. And my good friend Kelly and I up in Rome, Georgia. I'm originally from
Okay.
Rome, so I spent a lot of time
Yes, sir.
meeting with Kelly. My question is in regards to the reductions that you've been asked to do. How, if any, and I know it will, how, if any, will it impact the services that you provide? And the other part of that question is will teachers have access to you? I know you talked about webinars and so on. Certainly, those are fine when you're doing instruction, but when they have issues with their certifications, they have suspensions or whatever the case may be, professional development, how are you going to handle those things?
We don't see any changes right now with that area, with the certification area, which is also where the questions come to. That's one of the three areas that we have there, where we have 2 vacant positions in that area right now. We have held them. Is it going to hurt us? No, it takes us overtime. This time of year, we receive anywhere from 140 to about 400 certificate or people asking for a certificate a day. And so our lead time right now is about 2 days. It takes us to turn it around if they have everything in line. We don't see that ending. It's going to take all of us. My secretary works an hour and a half to 2 hours a day in certification. Other people are giving that up also to pick up that, but we don't want our customers, which are the teachers and the leaders, to fall short. in that. We're trying to cut back on travel. The webinars are fine, but there are times we've got to go face to face. And so, I mean, I've already given a list of the meetings that I'm going to go to that I feel like are important, but it's far shorter than what we've been able to do in the past. But it's better for me not to go than for those teachers not to have somebody to talk to.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
So, and thank you for your response. In regards to appeals, will we see extra time for appeals? How will the appeal process, once you have adjudicated, if you will, the original claim,
Right.
how long would it be to get through the appeal process, and will the reduction impact the appeal process in regards to certifications?
The best answer I can give you right now, Mr. Representative, is it could. It could, just to be honest, it could impact that. We don't want it to. Our time over the summer is 6 days. That's about where we're heading. That's vastly different than a lot of states. My daughter teaches in Colorado. She had everything in line. She took their test. She passed their test. She took it in August. She got her certificate in January. So, and that's pretty common for most states. So Georgia is an exception to the rule. We do turn them out quicker, but when you start talking about appeals and you start looking at that, you look at that part of it, it could take longer. Our ethics division really, every single case that comes for us takes about 30 days. Because you've got to go through witnesses and talk to witnesses, and our investigators have to do that. So even right now, it takes 30 days to go through. So it could.
Thank you.
You have another question, the Representative Stovall.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming before us today. I have a question. What does the consultant travel? What can you give us an example of what the consultant might be doing and where they may be traveling as to why for this particular amount?
I'm hesitating because I'm not real sure. I know that our consultants, like our ETS that gives the test, would be traveling to talk to colleges about the test, to talk to teachers about the test. I know that. I'm gonna turn around to Christine. Is there anything else?
Consultant travels, usually people who we invite to work with us on various things. It could be people who are site visitors who do the accreditation process for programs. It could be
A task force that we put together,
right, exactly.
that we've been asked to put together. We pay their travel to be on that task force.
So that's primarily what it is. It's not consulting kind of in a traditional sense, but they're considered consultants because they do help us develop something, whether it's a rule or mostly it will be rule changes, etc.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could you speak to the real estate rentals?
That's where our offices are.
You moving?
I hope not. We hope not.
Real estate, I over budgeted by $4,000, so it's a fine cut.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Arthur? We're seeing none. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We hope we're not moving.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on our list is GOSA. Ms. Hawkins, welcome. You've been here many times, several times. No stranger here. Well, thank you very much. You've got the floor.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, members of the committee. GOSA has been around since 2003. We grew a good bit during the Race to the Top years. When this governor came in, one of the core missions for him was to to eliminate redundancies with the DOE and to streamline. And so with your help with the 20% cut that we took during 19, we were already on the trajectory to do that very thing. And so that was just another way that we had, it was a way to, really work fast, and we did. And so you'll see that we took our 4% raise, our first 4% reduction by eliminating 3 positions and eliminating one of the personal learning programs, professional learning. It was called D3, and I think it's Design, Develop, and something. Discover. But basically it was for teachers, and it was for a blended learning experience. So I think we were in our second year. Because we also have the Governor's School Leadership Academy, we have now included that in the teacher training. So it's something that it would have been nice to continue, but we're finding ways to include it nonetheless. Our travel during this, when we saw that the economy was not going the way we were hoping, we cut out all out-of-state travel in the summer. And then, of course, when we heard about the 4% raise, we reduced all travel. I think that's pretty much it. We have maintained our FY20 obligations by working with other agencies, by rearranging some things on the ship. So we shouldn't experience any kind of problems in the future. For instance, with our Georgia School Leadership Academy, we have contracts with our RESAs for this teacher leader program that will begin in the summer. And so we will continue with that. It does not expand our budget. We're within our FY20 and with the 10% reduction on top of that. So I'd just like to open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Always good to see you, Joy. The question I have is, you talked about the, switching of what you all were doing with the professional learning grants to the teacher leadership program. So where is that particular money being reassigned to? Because I'm assuming that means there's going to be more work for the Leadership Academy. So if you can let me know that. And then the other question I had was about the 27.73 funding the early language and literacy pilot program with DECAL.
Right.
If you can talk about that.
Okay, sure. So at the end of the session last year, we were asked to produce a list of the programs and grants that we wouldn't continue. And from that, I think that was how it guided you all to make the cuts that you did. One of those grants continued on as a program that we wanted to continue, which was the Little Grant, and that would have gone to DECAL. However, because of the 4% additional cut, we were unable to fund that this year. The teacher leader portion of our budget is just a little over $1 million. And so we were able to hold off on a grant for the Governor's Honors Program or a contract for a 3-year facilitating the program at Berry College. So it was about $1 million. So that's how we were able to continue with the teacher portion of the Governor's School Leadership Academy. And by the way, from that academy, I'm so proud of the aspiring principals and principals. So we're in the second year of aspiring principals and principals, and from that group, 7 aspiring principals are now school leaders.
I had a follow-up about the early language and literacy pilot, and I guess it might be a question maybe to ask the commissioner when she comes up with DECAL as to how they would able to still be able to do that. I know we've been focusing on early literacy, and we have all looked at the statistics about making sure we're getting them early on. And so that's a lot of money to be cutting from that program, especially with decal. So I guess I'll hold the question, and then maybe
Right.
when the commissioner comes up, she may be able to address
and I
it.
can just tell you that Commissioner Jacobs and I have had conversations during the summer about that, and she'll go into more detail. We totally understand the importance. It is critical to have that kind of professional development at the early ages. So she'll talk in more detail about how that's happening.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I would just like to mention, and this is really just kind of a commercial for you, the Governor's Honors Program has been highly successful for years. We're still having a problem getting in some of the rural, small districts. So we just got nominations in from 140 of the 180 districts. And, we haven't mapped them out, but I can just guess, that it closed on Friday. I'm anxious to see, but I'm sure it's probably the same rural, small systems. So we're putting into effect this round a GHP alum. We want to hold a reception at the actual sessions so that we can identify those who could possibly tap teachers to be responsible in those systems for getting those students. It's a process. You nominate them, then you have to stand behind the student until they get the application done, et cetera, et cetera. So I realize when you're short-staffed and it's a small system, but it's such a good program, such a good benefit for all of our kids.
I just want to say thank you for that. You and I had a conversation a couple of years ago about that, and
We
I'll
did.
tell you the background is I asked my social superintendent one day, I said, how many years has it been? We didn't have a person in that program in a while. I said, how long has it been? He said, well, I'll check. He said, my records go back 15 years, and we've never, and it wasn't all y'all's fault. It was our school system fault for not urging some students to apply. And
We're hoping
so,
to ramp that up, just so that all systems are aware.
yeah.
And, we can use your help too, because when you go back home and talk to your superintendents, that would be just so helpful.
Well, thank you for trying to promote that and encourage that. It is a great program, and I know a lot of our students in our small systems and rural systems would really benefit from that as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you for following up on that.
Absolutely.
Got one more question. Representative Nix.
Whichever, just call me. That's good. No, I was concerned about the same thing on the literacy pilot program, and I hate to think we're going to back off on some of those things because we've worked so hard to get them going.
Absolutely.
I understand the concerns about budgets. Is there any chance any of that will be picked up by DOE, or is that just going to be gone?
Can I go ahead and just talk about? It's a decal program. I'm happy to talk about it. Right. Do you want to come up? Can we just go ahead and address this one together?
Sure. If y'all want to talk about that, that's a question.
I mean,
We're
While
all
it's on
family
your
here.
minds, it's critical to our early learning.
So what you're referring to is what we call Project Little. It's lifting infants and toddlers through language-rich environments, and it's a professional development program that focuses directly on infant and toddler teachers. As you know, we're working to raise the quality of early learning throughout our state through Quality Rated. We have about 50% of programs who have received that 1, 2, or 3 star. But when we go back and look at the scores, we assess the entire program, all classrooms from infant through 5-year-olds. And what we see in Georgia, and it's a national issue too, that the lowest quality is still in our infant and toddler classrooms. So several years ago, there was about $2 million given to us from GOSA to start this project to work specifically with infant and toddler teachers, specifically around language and literacy instruction. And we have continued this project even with the loss of the state dollars. We do have a large amount of federal dollars. We did have to delay some things we would have liked to do with federal dollars, like increasing some subsidy dollars and some subsidy slots for CAP scholarships. But we have great results with this program just in its 3rd year. We serve about 100 infant and toddler classrooms. That equates to about 300 teachers where they're getting professional development and data to change their teaching practices that they've never had before. So, for instance, we use two things to measure the effectiveness of this program. One is LENA. It's a talk pedometer. A lot of it is about the number of words and the number of conversational turns. I know you know all this lingo, especially for young children, but it's also about the responsive caregiving, so that interaction you're having with your teacher. And what we see from the beginning to the end of our professional development is huge increases in the number of words and conversational turns, but more importantly, that responsive caregiving, and we measure that through a class assessment, is going up as well. So it's a very impactful program, and we have continued it with our federal dollars.
Okay. Good, thank you. That was what I wanted to get to, so appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, we got that one done.
Got one more question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to follow up. And thank you, Commissioner Jacobs and Joy, for working that situation. But I did hear that because this particular money is being cut, that you used some of the federal money that resulted in a decrease in the CAP subsidy.
So we didn't have to decrease our CAP subsidy. We had some plans to do some 2-gen work that we had to delay. So no CAP scholarships have been impacted. We're still serving actually over 50,000 children with our CAP scholarships, but we had planned to do some 2-generation work to work more closely with children and families to make them self-sufficient and economically stable, and we weren't able to do that since we needed to use this $2 million for Project Little.
And I know may I follow up, Mr. Chairman? I know the 2-gen work, I think y'all are working with another organization. I don't know if it's United Way or, I know it's another organization y'all are working with the 2-gen. This is the technical college, I think.
We work very closely with the technical college.
And so I guess because of that, we know, and from you all have said, that impact with that, with that mother and that child, or the parents and that child, is very important, even relating back to what you're doing with the pilot program. So I guess I still had a concern that you had to delay one program that should be simultaneously going on to be able to actually get more results. But thank you for that answer.
Well, I see no more questions from my committee, so thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. And
You want to stay?
Director Jacobs, you can just stay right there,
Right.
and we can look at your budget.
Okay, well, thank you.
We've gotten some questions, so you can continue on if it's
Okay.
some more that you want to share with us.
All right, well, thank you, Chairman Dickey and members of the committee. I will tell you before I get to our individual budget items that we took the approach of making reductions that would not impact our core services. So we really looked hard at where we could take some reductions to not impact the health and safety of children in childcare, to allow us to increase the quality of childcare, to allow us to continue to serve 50,000 children in our subsidy program and maintain the quality of our pre-K program. You will find decal on page 1 of your tracking sheet, section 22, and I'm going to go line by line, just because that's what I'm used to. If you want me to do it differently, you can tell me. The first changes in our child care services program, which is 22.1.1, and this is a reduction of $72,839 to eliminate one vacant position. This was a communications specialist position that primarily focused on community outreach, but we feel like we can utilize our current staff to perform these duties. The next reduction in item is 22.1.2, which is a reduction of $170,337,000 for personal services. We identified 2 positions where we could shift either all or a portion of their salary from state funds to federal funds, and that's what this reflects here. We took a look at the job responsibilities and some new job responsibilities and how it would align with our federal requirements, and we were able to shift some of these state-funded positions to federal dollars. And then our next change in child care services is at 22.1.3. This is a reduction in our CAPS program of $500,000. This money was added last year by the General Assembly and would have allowed us to serve about 100 children more in our child care subsidy program. This was a reduction that we thought about very carefully, but it does not impact the 50,000 that we currently serve. So we thought this would be a reduction that we could take that would not impact our current service levels for our CAPS subsidy program. And just as a reminder, our CAPS program is the child care subsidy, and it allows low-income working families to access child care. It helps to pay for a portion of their child care while they go to work or go to school. Our next changes are in the pre-K program. 22.3.1 is a statewide change for DOAS, so I'll skip to 22.3.2. And this is a reduction of 3 contracts totaling $854,058. One is a $150,000 reduction for IT services. These are our IT contractors that support our pre-K and IT needs in our pre-K database. As they finish their IT projects for our pre-K program, these contractors will either attrition or they'll move to other projects in our agency. There's also a $444,000 reduction for our software support and maintenance. This will delay any upgrades that we make to our system that manages all of our pre-K program, our pre-K data, our pre-K teacher data, student data, our payments, our application process. We will be able to do basic maintenance, but no upgrades to that system. And there's also a reduction of $260,000 to a contract with the Georgia Family Connection Partnership. Given their statewide presence, we do work together to bring awareness and to promote the importance of early learning around the state due to their statewide reach. The next change you'll see is 22.3.3, which is a reduction of one-time funds for a computer refresh of $100,000. We just completed a computer refresh for all our pre-K staff, so we will not need to do this again for a few years. And then our final item is 22.3.4, which is a reduction of $77,767 to reduce personal services to eliminate 1 vacant position. And this will reduce funds for a vacant pre-K specialist position in South Fulton. Those are all of our changes, but of course I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Let's go back up there, that software support and maintenance, $444,000. You said that's a delay. How long can you delay?
So that'll delay any upgrades we make to the system. So we'll maintain the basic system, but any upgrades, it's called Panda. Everything we have at DECAL is named after a bear. But it's called Panda. It handles everything pre-K related. It's a very old system just because pre-K is so old. However, we have done some upgrades over the past few years. There are more needed, but we'll delay those, but continue with just basic maintenance of the system. So it should not impact the current functionality.
Okay. Your CAPS program, you said you served 50,000.
Yes, sir.
I assume you got a long waiting list?
So we serve about 14% of the children we believe are eligible. So we do not have a wait list, but we do know that we only serve about 14% of the children that are eligible.
Yeah. Okay. Has that been pretty steady over the last few years, or is it?
It has fluctuated between about 35,000 and 50,000. We've made some changes over the last several years and have committed to remaining at 50,000 because we understand the impact if we served less than 50,000, but there's also a greater need than that as well. It's a crucial program not only for the child to receive that early learning, quality early learning, but it's also crucial for the parents so that they can actually go to work or go to school to better themselves.
Right. Good program. Thank you. I see a couple of questions. Representative Glanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much. I enjoy working with your departments as well, and child care and kindergarten and all those things are very important to me. My question is in reference to 22.3.4, and we're talking about reducing funds for personal services and to eliminate 1 vacant position. My first question, or first part of my question, is what is personal services? And the second part of my question is, if it's a vacant position, why is it still there, and why are we still allocating funds for it in spite of the reduction, the 4% reductions?
So the money that you see as a reduction would be the actual salary and the fringe benefits. This particular position has been vacant since July. We have been actively trying to fill it up until December, where we actually offered the job and the candidate turned us down. And then we saw this reduction when the governor's budget recommendation came out, so we're holding on that. So there are savings there because this position has been vacant since July, but we have been actively recruiting for it.
So what is personal services? Can you help me
Personal
understand?
services
Yeah.
would be the salary costs and the fringe benefits associated with that.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Could I ask a question and follow up on that, on vacant positions? That probably could be a very critical position. Do you have the flexibility with OPB to fill that position and hold another, or not hire another position that comes vacant? Do you have that flexibility?
We have asked that question because we would like to have that flexibility, and we have not gotten a definitive answer, but I'm sure OPB will work with us on that. Our pre-K specialists, we feel they're the ones that help to maintain the quality of our pre-K program. They work directly with pre-K classrooms and with teachers and assistant teachers.
Yeah.
So we hope we will have some flexibility so that we can fill that position.
Interesting. Thank you. Representative Stovall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question on, and I have, well, actually a concern about the not being able to serve more students in the CAPS program. And I understand that you said about the 14% that you all are serving that are not eligible. And I guess that might kind of goes into the 2Gen program, as well, if we're trying to make sure that those parents who want to do higher education without technical colleges would end up not having child care for their children, which would kind of prevent them from attending. And then I have another question. So did you want me to do your second question? Or do you want
So what was your question?
Well, I guess I want to know, what type of impact could that possibly have, even with the 2Gen program that was.
Okay, I'll
we
answer that
talked
one
about earlier.
first.
Okay.
So, I do, that will not impact the current children that receive CAPS. Just because we can't add any additional children to our CAPS program, we continue with our partnership with TCSG by being present on site to help identify any other resources. We work with an organization that does NANA grants, and so we work with them. They raise private dollars, and we try to make up the difference with CAPS. And they specifically target single mothers that are enrolled in technical college system. We develop some joint resources, so we know what resources are available at the community, and we're always on site at technical colleges. So the partnership won't stop. We just don't have the ability to serve any more children in that capacity.
Was there any consideration, and it might not have been possible, but to maybe reduce the amount of subsidy that it might not have? I don't know if you kind of could have done a scale in so that, where a parent might have been eligible for 100%, but if you scaled it back to maybe 50% or 40%, at least that's 40 or 50% off of that child care that they were getting. So I guess that might have been that wasn't the second question, but that just ended up being the follow-up question.
So no, we did not take that into consideration. Actually, over the last year, what we've done is focused on maintaining 50,000 and raising the rates we pay for their care. Because what happens is we're paying very low rates, below 25% of the market rate to child care providers to care for these. And then what happens is we pay a very low rate. Obviously, the child care program charges more, and the parent has to pay the rest of it. So that differential between what CAPS pays and what the child care provider actually charges can be a huge burden for a family. The families also, so we raise those rates to try to eliminate that burden as much as possible. Families that receive CAPS also have to pay a family fee. We made some pretty big improvements in that in the last year as well. The gold standard for that is for families not to pay more than 7% of their income for child care. And so we simplified that formula. And so no family pays more than 7% of their income. On average, they pay about $22 a week for their family fee. So we've lowered that for them as well. And then also, if you choose a quality rated provider, you get a 15% discount on your family fee. So no, we haven't done what you've asked us to do. We've done other things for the reasons that I talked about.
Okay. Mr. Chair, may I ask my second question? I'll make it quick. Okay. The next question I had was about the Georgia Family Connection Partnership. Could you talk about that particular relationship and why, what's the impact is 260,000
Sure.
can have on that program?
Sure. So just overall, when we look at the pre-K budget, we looked at our admin portion of the budget, and that's where these reductions are from. It's about 3% of the total pre-K budget. So when we look at about the $12 million of admin we spend for pre-K, about half is in personal services, so there's pre-K specialists, and about half are in contracts, which is why you see a large cut to contracts to meet that reduction. The total contract with Family Connection Partnership is $600,000, so it's not eliminating the entire contract. I do believe it will impact, the TA that they provide to their local communities, but anything more specific than that, I think Gay Smith would be better suited to answer those questions on the exact impact. We have been in discussion with them from the beginning on this, so.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
I see no other questions from our committee. I just want to say, that, is anything else you need to share with this committee about cuts going forward? I mean, is this your priorities or OPB's or anything we need to know further?
Well, I think we did the best we could, given the budget instructions to reduce 4% and 6% in this current year and the next year, and to try to have the least amount of impact on the services that we provide, because we do believe that we provide a critical service to very, very young children throughout our state.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I
Appreciate your
appreciate
support.
the good job you do. Okay, moving along. Next, I think Department of Education is here. Oh, Ted, you were hiding over behind I was looking for you. I didn't know if you'd already exited for other bigger and better things.
Chairman,
Glad to have you
We're
here.
happy to have me come before you one more time, at least. So,
One more time?
one more time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, for the opportunity to come before you today. I can give you some general context to our budget reductions as they were planned, and then what we've seen so far from the governor's recommendations. We've been in reduction mode basically since late August, when we received the governor's instructions around taking a 4% cut to this fiscal year. As you all know, our budget is essentially two pots of money. You've got the QBE formula, all the other state-funded grant programs which flow through us to the districts, and then you've got the Department of Education proper, which also includes our state schools, so that even has kind of a multi-component aspect to it. We spoke with OPB at the onset of the budget development process to make sure we understood what should and shouldn't be included in our reduction scenarios. In particular, the instructions included exempting the QBE programs, for which we're considerably grateful. We know districts are as well. There are other state-funded grant programs outside of QBE which were not specifically exempted. So the bottom line is we were asked to find about $12.5 million in reductions, and the way we went about that was to look at any non-exempt state-funded program and at least show on the page what a 4% reduction to that program would look like, and then everything else would be operational reductions to the department. We've been tracking towards our operational reductions over the course of the fiscal year. Rather than kind of go caption by caption, I can give you some general insight into some of our strategies. The foremost, as it is with a lot of other agencies, is looking at our personnel, and in particular attrition rates. And when we have a vacancy come open, we do a pretty careful evaluation of whether or not to rehire for that vacancy. And so in a lot of cases, we are holding vacancies and plan to continue to hold vacancies in areas where we think that there's not going to be as much of a mission critical impact. We've done a lot around travel. As the other agencies have talked about, we're looking to maximize the opportunities to do things virtually, over the phone, anything that can reduce the footprint in terms of mileage and overnight stays, those kinds of things. That's a pretty considerable part of our reduction plan. And then finally, we have kind of the everything else bucket. And so these are all the other operational aspects of the department that we have. Looking at conferences, a lot of our professional learning and outreach and district interaction, reducing that so that we can meet what we thought were going to be our target amounts. Upon issuance of the governor's recommendations, we were excited to see that in a lot of cases, those other non-exempt state-funded grant programs were left intact. GNETS is an example. The Ag Ed and CTAE Ed grant payments did not take any reductions. On the other hand, in order for the governor to balance the budget, it appears that that required some additional cuts to the operating side of the department proper. And so in some cases, we've got programs that are going to be taking, under this framework at least, larger reductions than we were planning for originally. We are working now on a program-by-program basis to address where those additional cuts would come from. The reality is that budget management, in a lot of ways, I describe as a science and an art. So we have captions that may refer to very specific areas or very specific pots of money, and we're certainly tracking towards that in most cases, but it's not always exactly what we think is going to happen over the next 5 months of the fiscal year. But that's what we're working on. I can tell you that in terms of operating impact, areas that saw a pretty big jump programmatically, and we were in section 24 of your tracking sheets. The central office program is now looking at about an 8.5% reduction, which is certainly larger than we had originally been planning. And our concern there is that that is more than just the superintendent's office. It includes a lot of our administrative divisions, policy, legal, internal audit, the special education team. And again, it's just going to be some more belt tightening around things that we didn't necessarily have in our original plan. Section 24.5, this is the chief turnaround office. The net result of those reductions is about a 27% cut to that program. That would essentially limit us in this fiscal year to being able to pay for the existing staff. The superintendent presented to the joint committee earlier last week to talk operationally about what we're doing there during this transition period and what we plan to do with those staff. And so that's still things that we're working on, but that is certainly a very noticeable change in terms of the resources that are available for that group. The curriculum program in 24.7, that's about a 6% reduction. We had originally been planning for something closer to 4. The impact there is really our ability to respond to standards review, which is the big ticket item inside of that program where we're working on the standards, working on doing professional development. In a very specific case, we're working on math standards right now, which you may have heard about. It's a very big project, entails a lot of stakeholders and paying for the teachers that are involved in that, substitute stipends and that kind of thing. And so we're just having to look to make sure that we can continue to accommodate the work that we think is the largest or highest priority and scaling back in some of the other content areas where we're just not going to have the resources this year. ITS in section 24.12, it's about a 7% reduction, and that's fairly close to what we had originally requested. The methodology there is that we've got a pretty considerable number, or had a pretty considerable number of contract staff assisting our full-time staff in the management and development of our IT applications portfolio. We just don't have those folks at this point. We've let the vast majority of them go and placed the portfolio itself into what I would call kind of break-fix mode. We're not going to lose applications. We're not trying to lose functionality or service. We certainly are not as agile or flexible as we otherwise would have been to do upgrades, continual development of the applications, or to respond to breaks and get repairs and acted in as timely a manner as we would otherwise like. An example of that is that we had a server go down a couple of months ago related to a security issue. That particular server produced the QBE allotment sheets that districts pull down to see what exactly they're getting in terms of that. And it's just one of those reporting features that people kind of rely on. It took, and all credit to that group for getting it back online as quickly as they did under a new architecture and having to rewrite the program essentially to fit that new server architecture, about 6 weeks to get that up, whereas we would have hoped to have been able to do that a lot quicker in other instances where we had additional resources. But again, our goal is to maintain the functionality that we have. It's just going to be a little bit more taxing on the resources that are there. And I'll jump back to QBE in just a second and just briefly cover that in section 24.21. This is the school improvement program. That constitutes about an 8% reduction to that program. This is one of our larger groups, but these are the folks that are out there working with districts individually on improvements to academic outcomes. Our original plan there was to really focus on the vacancy rate, and the hope was that our original request would allow us to go back and make some of those what we considered critical rehires. Under this scenario, we would be able to do less of that, and that's really the net impact, is that if it's an open seat right now, for us to meet this reduction target, the reality is we would probably need that seat to remain open for the rest of the fiscal year. State schools is probably the last place we have any sizable reductions, and this essentially mirrors our request. It's about a 4.5% change to those budgets. We did work fairly closely with the state schools, their directors, and their administrative staff, and they, to their credit, really spent a lot of time back in the early fall developing plans at each of the 3 schools that would allow us to take these cuts. So we're not really as worried about programmatic impact there. We certainly have heard some concern from external stakeholders, members of the legislature, about taking any reductions there after working so hard over the last several fiscal years to increase the resources that they have, particularly on the physical plant side, and we recognize that. Happy to work with you all in addressing to make sure that we're taking care of the critical needs that we have there. The rest of our budget really is tied up into the QBE program, and I covered this in the joint hearing, so I won't spend a lot of time unless there's specific questions on these items. But in section 24.19, I believe this is page 4 of your tracking sheet, you'll see all the changes to the QBE programs and its various component parts. Short answer is we had another slow growth year. We've seen that demographically over the last 4 or 5 years, that we're expecting anything from no growth to about 0.5% a year. This year it came in at 0.3%. The midterm adjustment, however, still includes about $114 million new dollars into the QBE program. And as I talked about in an earlier presentation, the cause of that is a continued shift of students into higher cost QBE categories. So even though we're not growing in terms of K-12 enrollment, we do see a continued shift, and have seen this shift over the last 10 years really, of students into categories such as the early intervention programs, remedial, alternative education, and the students with disability categories. And so whenever you see kids coming out of those, what I call just grade level categories, and going into those more specialized categories, that is going to require additional funding in terms of the formula expense. The other big ticket item that you'll see this year inside of QBE is an increase on the state commission charter school supplement. There's 2 components to that. There's new schools coming online. We have 4 new schools this year. We've seen continued FTE growth on the state charter side for the last several years. And there was a piece of legislation enacted last year, House Bill 787, that changed the components of that supplement. So this catches us up to what those new requirements are. So I will stop there. I'm sure you guys have some more specific questions, so we'll try to answer those one by one, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. And I'll turn it over to our committee. Vice Chairman Glanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. And I was very involved in the standing up of the Chief Turnaround Officer and that whole process.
Yes, sir.
I certainly had some concerns when we originally placed the Chief Turnaround Officer on the DOE. I've often felt that it should have been an independent office. But after a while of watching the progress or lack thereof, then I realized that it's probably the best thing is under the program, on the DOE, I'm sorry. So my question is, I'm looking at 24.5.2. Mm-hmm. And we talk about the reduction in funds, reducing funds for 5 vacant positions. Now, my understanding is there is a transition happening as we speak with the Chief Turnaround Officer's position. The first question is that position included in these 5 vacant positions currently that you have?
The CTO itself?
Yes, sir.
No, sir, it's not.
Okay. And so do we have an interim at this time?
We do. Dr. Stephanie Johnson, who is the director of our school improvement program, was named by the board as the interim CTO. So she is still being funded from a budget perspective out of her original program in school improvement, but she has the leadership task associated with the transition period for this program.
So what happens to the money, the funds that would have been applied to the CTO position? What happens to that money now?
The board is continuing to address that position, and as it stands, the position is not vacant. Is, I think, the best way I can describe that.
I'm kind of confused because I know what you're doing, but I'm a little bit confused. we have an interim in that is being paid not from these funds,
Correct.
that have been paid from the funds from which they came,
Yes, sir.
but the position is vacant,
It is not.
and the money is, help me understand. Probably everybody else understand. I'm not understanding.
I want to be cautious. I don't want
Okay.
to not give you a
We'll leave
bad
it alone.
answer, but
We'll leave it alone.
there's probably some stuff in executive session that was expressed that makes it a little bit difficult.
Don't
for
want
me
to put you in that
go.
position.
Okay.
So the last part of my question, Mr. Chairman, is in the absence of the permanent CTO,
Yes, sir.
is any of the schools that were in the process of being assisted by this department, are they suffering? Is it delayed services? Help me, I understand you have a interim in there, but help me understand, are we still providing the same services to those challenged schools that are out there?
Sure. The superintendent's commitment is to continue working with those schools and to provide the level of services that they merit by being participants in the program. And so that's what's happening now in terms of that transition. I don't know the full details because it's something that's been happening literally this week, but Dr. Johnson is working with those staff to understand what they've been doing. And one of the department's goals, and what the superintendent talked to the joint committee about in particular, was making sure that that service delivery model looked as much like what we do in school improvement now as possible. And so they mirrored each other fairly similarly to begin with. They're both involved in the same line of business, and so I don't think that's going to be a radical shift. But the superintendent is fully committed to making sure that if we had a school or a system that was being served through the CTO program, both this year and next fiscal year, they'll continue to receive those services.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Stovall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you as always
Thank you.
for having to work with such a complicated budget. The question I have was a couple of them. On 24.2.5, which is the Business and Finance Administration, that one-time system platform upgrade, how would that affect the DOE, being that I guess technology is always changing, and especially with you all being in education, and we all oftentimes hear systems are so antiquated or backdated when it comes to upgrades. So what particular, I guess, what type of system platform upgrade would this be affected by?
To be honest, I had to go back to OPB to ask where this one came from, and it looked like these were one-time funds that were provided some time ago specifically for our grants administration application. We did some upgrades and tweaks to that. That application continues to function. As you mentioned, it is a legacy application, as are most of the applications, particularly on the business and finance side. So we are very, very thankful for the resources that we do have in the ITS department, in particular the staff that have worked with those over many years and have that institutional knowledge, and we hope and pray that they remain with us because they are a critical link in terms of maintaining that. So this would not necessarily have any direct impact on that functionality.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, may I continue?
Go ahead.
Okay. On 24.5, the Chief Turnaround Officer, the question I do have is, I saw where there was a reduction in the staff for 5 vacant positions, and then when I flipped over to the school improvement program, there was an additional 3 vacant positions, so a total of 8 vacant positions. And I guess my concern there, or the question is, the amount or level of services for especially those turnaround schools that are below that 60, and then you have the other schools that are in that critical point for not getting down to the turnaround. And I'm seeing cuts, from the Chief Turnaround Officer's department, and then I'm seeing cuts in school improvement department. So and I don't know, that might not be a question for you to be able to answer, but I guess I was just trying to figure out, when you all were figuring up this particular part, I'm concerned about the impact that those 8 positions could have for such a critical departments, or combined departments now.
Sure. The reality is that it's 8 fewer bodies doing the work, and I won't pretend that won't have any impact at all. We are committed to making sure that our service levels stay as high as possible. The bulk of our original budget submission was concentrated on administrative areas, my shop, ITS, any place where you have what you would consider just kind of departmental overhead, with as minimal an impact at the superintendent and board's directive on our service delivery, both either inside of school improvement, curriculum, CTAE, ag, any of these places where we're out there touching districts on a one-by-one basis. I am confident that Dr. Johnson continues and will continue to get the most out of her staff, and for us to be able to get out there and do the work that we need to do and have been doing, but without the flexibility under what these recommendations include, it does hamstring them somewhat in being able to refill positions as they become vacant, or for us to address positions that we would hope to look at rehiring a little bit later towards the spring.
And I guess also then when I looked and saw teacher and district training was being reduced, and then RESA was being reduced, and I'm just thinking about all those support mechanisms that are very crucial. That was all the questions I had and comments.
Thank you. I want to reiterate Representative Stovall that concern with the turnaround and improvement. I mean, I just can't help but see how those vacant positions not going to really impact that program, and I just hate to see that recommendation from y'all to really gut that program down. Also, state schools. I got a state school in my district down there. I just wonder why they were targeted for cuts and our other QBE and other students were not. Why we got several cuts there. Could you address how they are going to affect those schools?
Sure. The reality is they're a pretty big program for us, and so for us to look to find, again, $12.5 million in reductions, the likelihood that we wouldn't be able to incur some of that in the state schools program was pretty low. We did try to limit it to that 4% scenario, and that's essentially where we are. Some of the things that were put up are kind of additional academic materials, some of the things that were planned in terms of providing those to those students, but I know that each of those schools and their like we call them superintendents, but each of those state school superintendents and our state school superintendent over the entire program were very purposeful in looking at that plan and the plans that they developed so that there wasn't anything on the academic side that would leave them in a position that was less than where they were before. That's been a continued place of focus as long as I've been here in terms of making sure that those students get the services they need, but they're also either graduating or receiving whatever academic outcome that they're looking for at the end of their tenure with us. And so
those recommendations here came from those schools?
They did.
Okay.
And one of the bigger pots, and I don't want to jinx it, but we've been fortunate in the last couple of years in terms of our physical plant and infrastructure. We have a pretty sizable budget for what we call maintenance and repair. We've just gotten lucky, frankly, in particular the winter time in terms of our systems and system failures.
Yeah, because these are handicapped students, and I would think we'd need some good facilities and maintenance repair there.
Yes,
I mean,
and we're proud of
just
the
don't have
progress
much
we've
flexibility
made.
at those schools to. Could you also address RESA cuts? I'm getting a lot of feedback from my RESAs and those type things. Just what impacts are those cuts going to have on those programs? What programs within those RESAs do you expect to be?
On a RESA by RESA basis, I don't know how they
Okay.
would administer it, but the way that the amount was calculated, it is just a 4% reduction to the base grant.
Okay.
And so it is in a lot of ways less than what we're taking.
Okay, it'll be up to
programmatically.
them how they reduce their programs
Yes, sir.
along the 4%.
Yeah, we didn't come up with anything specific
directive.
programmatically.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Thank you, Ted.
All right.
Good
Thank you.
luck.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to open the floor to anyone else that would like to make some observations or tell this committee any concerns you have, primarily with this amended budget. But any other overall things, I'd be happy to entertain some statements from the floor. You just come and introduce, be quick as long as you'd like. I got all day.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'm Helen Slow with Nelson Mullins, and want to make sure I'm clear in understanding. there'll be an opportunity to speak to the 21 budget at a later point in time?
Yes,
Okay, great. We'll be there then. Thank you.
thank you. Is anyone else would like to speak to the committee? Well, thank y'all for hearing none. Thank y'all for being here. This was productive, and we'll take these into considerations as we craft our budget. It's going to be a tough job. We'll have to do it. So thank you very much. Have a good day.